Hello, chaps. Welcome to the Windbreakers podcast. I'm Yahtzee Crowshaw, and I'm joined by Marty Sleeper.
What happened there?
Well, you're not possessed with the urge to make a funny voice too, innit?
I don't know.
No.
Just starting anything with "hello" immediately sort of sets the tone for the rest of the sentence, I suppose.
I thought it was beautiful.
Also, Frost is here.
I'm putting on an aggressive Michael Caine as well. Hello.
Size of a pomegranate.
Right.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Anyway, for no real reason except that it's the anniversary of the first game, I believe. The 15th anniversary of the first game. We thought we'd reminisce about Infamous, which is about the only place you could experience the Infamous thing anymore because Sony won't fucking re-release it on anything.
Someday. Maybe someday. The silliest thing is that they ended up buying the company. So it's like you have the IP and you have the company. Why don't you just release the games?
Well, it's doubly annoying because they just put out Ghost of Tsushima on Steam, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of suspect that's why people are suddenly talking about Infamous. And I kind of suspect they only put it out on Steam because Ubisoft announced Assassin's Creed Samurai or whatever it's called. And Sony wanted to say, hey, we already did that. It's called Ghost of Tsushima, and here it is.
Hey, that's not the reason.
Well, what is the reason?
Because they own a studio named Nixies that's all about porting those games to PC, and it's free money. It's not free money because you got to port the game, but you already did most of the hard work. Just port that game over to PC. Right-click, save as, .pc.
Well, yeah, it's as easy as that. And while they're at it, they should port Bloodborne to Steam as well.
Well,
that's for in case of emergencies.
That is, we lost the code and we don't know. Michael's out.
Our stock is tanking. Quick, give them Bloodborne. That's for in case.
I mean, maybe they think Infamous 1 and 2 don't reflect Sony's current standards for visuals or whatever, because those were like PS3 games. If Infamous 1 was a really early PS3 game, I remember my version had the original PS3 box layout.
Oh yeah,
with the weird red text on the side.
Yeah. I did not like that. It was, so it came out 15 years ago, 2009. Looking back at 2009, I would say a bit of a weak year. We've talked about years like 2007 before, 2011, 2017. 2009, yeah, a bit of a weak year, which is, I think, one of the reasons why Infamous stood out in it. Not a terrible year, but just a bit weird.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You got like X-Men Origins, Wolverine, Left 4 Dead 2, Assassin's Creed 2, Uncharted 2, but Brutal Legend ruined it all. All the momentum gone.
Yeah, Demon Souls, which folks weren't really talking about at the time. Arkham Asylum, which was obviously great.
A
lot of great in hindsight.
Yeah.
Oh, Arkham Asylum was great when it came out, I'd say. That was like Game of the Year that year.
Yeah. That was 2009, yeah.
Yeah, Demon Souls definitely was one of those. Like, no, not a whole lot of us played it at the time.
First Borderlands as well, daring time.
Yeah.
And there was Prototype as well. Famously, Infamous and Prototype came out around the same time.
They were 2 weeks apart, yeah.
And they were both superhero sandbox, traversal-focused sandboxes in which you played a supervillain. I mean, potentially.
Yeah, and without being tied to a major IP. Like, even though this was sort of when the MCU really started kicking off. They were both able to tell superhero stories without needing to tether them to a superhero.
What a time. You even had like Whet.
Yes.
Remember Whet?
Oh yeah, Whet.
W-H-E-T, Whet. Yeah.
Now, Infamous was treading interesting new ground. Because it wasn't the first superhero sandbox game. Spider-Man 2, I want to say, was that.
Mm-hmm.
This was an exploration of superhero sandboxing, but from the perspective of a character who wasn't a superhero in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
And it was also like a landmark title in superhero sandboxing generally, because of, traversal. It's one of the more interesting approaches to sandboxing, I think, more so than your arse-achingly realistic sandbox where you're stuck on the ground the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And Infamous also had the gimmick of a binary moral choice system, which games don't really do anymore. And it was a kind of a clumsy thing, but it was part of the identity of the game, so we might as well talk about it.
Yeah, I mean that was that kind of became a thing du jour around that time, right? You had BioShock a few years earlier, and then they became a big part in BioWare games like Mass Effect and everything. Yeah, the choices, I always appreciated the binary choice nature of Do you go good or evil? As sort of on paper, I appreciated them. I just feel like almost every game they kind of falter in execution. It's just very
Yeah.
hard to make both paths interesting while also having an interesting middle ground.
I think Infamous worked in spite of it, and not really in because of it. I mean, you say not really being able to focus on both paths. I think Infamous 2 did a really good job of making both endings actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that appeals to me is the story aspect. But I always thought like the good or evil binary choice thing just ends up with you wanting to stick with one or the other. I mean, I didn't see much point in them asking you every time a choice came up if you wanted to be good or evil. Because in Infamous in particular, there was no advantage to going like halvesies. The only advantage was to be all the way good or all the way evil. That's how you would
because then you'd unlock the most interesting things.
Yeah, you'd unlock the biggest super attacks.
Where's the nuanced gameplay? Hey, well, it's always good or evil. You talked about that once, didn't you? Hippies or what was it? Totalitarian dickheads.
Well, that's how it. That's what good versus evil sort of evolved into.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone decided good versus evil wasn't quite nuanced enough, so then it became fascists versus nutters, which was basically just conservatism versus liberalism.
Yeah.
God dang it, at its most extreme ends. But here we are trying to operate in the fray. How much of its success would you weigh in on coming from the success of Hancock in 2008? Good old Will
This
Smith
is the world's first Hancock like?
This is the Hancock like.
Yeah.
Even when it came through, I was like, is that Hancock the video game?
Yeah, I mean, the conventional person with superpowers was sort of a subgenre that was sort of blossoming at that time. I'm also thinking of Misfits, the British TV series, and Heroes as well.
That's right, yeah.
TV series that eventually shat the bed.
Yeah,
maybe there's something about. Maybe we could infer something about the greater collective unconscious by that. Maybe people have become cynical about superheroes and wanted to really deconstruct the concept. Wank, wank.
Wank, wank, nudge, nudge.
Yes.
It was interesting. It was also an example of we saw a lot of developers throughout the 2000s start with sort of colorful, more family-friendly games. We saw Sucker Punch do this with the Sly trilogy. Obviously, Naughty Dog had Crash and Jak and Daxter, and then kind of evolving past that with the times as the big games started to be your Grand Theft Autos, your Call of Duties, your Ubisoft games, sort of leaning away from that colorful beginning and going more into gritty realism. Definitely Infamous 1 to me is a game born of the Brown era. I think of that game as very brown with splashes of color from your powers.
It's funny to say that because in retrospect, it's pretty cartoony. It's even like the first one, especially, had a almost sort of cel-shaded look.
I'd take that. It's a bit stylized of a brown thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Sort
I
of
had
timeless.
like the cutscenes were sort of comic based.
Yeah, that felt like it was trying to skimp out a little bit of like, well, we're not going to animate these full things, so let's.
Well, that's how they did it back in the day. If they couldn't like draw graphic novel pages, they just zoom into the concept art a few times with a voiceover.
It's interesting. I did a little research on the game this morning, and I didn't realize it was originally pitched as not an open world action game like this, but more of a almost a superhero take on like Animal Crossing or The Sims, where you would be like an animal. You would be like a superhero in a like metropolitan area who has to kind of like cultivate peace and goodwill around them while doing super heroic things. And then I think it was ultimately like Sony was like, we want you to just do Grand Theft Auto with superpowers. Please do that. And
which works. I mean, what you're describing there sounds more like a Fable sort of situation.
Yeah, a little bit, where you really try to like shape the world around you. And I guess some of that was still found in the game itself, and your actions having consequences, kind of thing.
And like people running away and screaming from you if you're evil and all that.
Yeah,
but I'd say for all like the grittiness in like the main character's like very extremely gravelly voice and general sort of mood, it was a pretty cartoony game at least to play.
Oh sure,
you shoot lightning out of your hands. The enemies are all these weird sort of cartoony like monsters in hoodies, and everything's got these weird sort of exaggerated walk animations, like sliding along railroad tracks was very fun.
Yeah, gliding through the air using your electricity powers.
I remember the games fondly as playing, very fun, and having an interesting story. Infamous 2, I think, had a better story than the first one.
Yeah, I would say so, definitely. And like I guess it's fine to spoil a 15-year-old game, but I did like the reveal at the end that Kessler, the guy you were chasing, is you, like from a kind of evil you from the future.
Yeah, now that's a fucking comic book twist, isn't it?
Yeah.
Twist for the time, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Heroes had similar twists as well. But I also really I liked, it's one of those open world games where your powers and what you can do interact really well with the world around you, to where you need to like get energy from sources of electricity around the city. And it's I don't know, it's like a small thing that even I think bleeding through into, no matter what you think of like Second Son, I like the idea that your neon powers are sucked up through various things in the city. I think that's an interesting way to I guess display your powers in an open world game.
Yeah, it's a good way to integrate the core mechanics with the environment, I suppose.
Yeah.
I tell you what, this was like a big time too for these sort of like Buzzcut anti-heroes, you know?
God.
Looking through this, I'm like, this is the exact same back model for Star Killer.
There's like a whole thing of headshots of try to name who these characters were, and there's like dozens of them from this.
Yeah, I've seen that.
What?
Yeah, every character in a war shooter, and most of the non-war shooters as well. Just a white dude with buzz-cut hair and an unshaven face.
Do you think the buzz-cut thing is because it's easier to not worry about hair than to worry about hair?
Yeah, I mean, this was before hair could be made really realistic in.
But also, why some hair? They're never full bald. Why some hair?
Just gotta have a little. It's their choice.
I don't know. Fully bald makes you look old, I guess. Makes you look like.
Just makes you look like Agent 47.
Yeah.
But yeah, this and when did Bully come out? It was like he's probably the short king of these.
A couple years before this, the short king, Bobby Hill. Yeah.
I think of Red Faction Guerrilla for some reason when we talk about Buzzcut protagonists.
Yeah, I guess those kind of go hand in hand with the Brown era. There's a lot of those. Which shout out to Leon Kennedy for still having his nice coiffed bowl cut or whatever the hell he had.
Well, it wouldn't be Leon Kennedy without his dumb haircut.
Without his very, very dumb haircut.
I mean, every protagonist in Resident Evil is pretty fucking interchangeable anyway. If they shaved all their heads, how would you tell them apart?
It's funny how prevalent that was at the time, because when they ultimately revealed Infamous 2 and being like, oh, this time we're going to New Orleans and it's bigger and it's better than the last one, they revealed the Cole with hair. He had hair, and people were upset, and they had to change it. And they're like, "Okay, we've taken his hair away. He's got a buzz cut again," because people are like, "That's not my Cole. My Cole's not allowed to have hair."
It was just it spoke to the trends. What, your Mass Effect as well?
Yeah, like the core shepherd you think of as male shepherd is bald.
I mean, baldness. Cole had a look, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. Is it back when we were like, the military is not complete dickheads, around 2008, 2009. Who was president?
It's that was 2008 was shifting into Obama, but yeah, it is interesting too.
Even our president had the same.
That's true. The Obama cut. I rewatched on stream yesterday. I rewatched the big three E3 conferences from 2004 out of curiosity, and it was funny to see in 2004 there was still kind of a post 9/11 war on terror kind of oorah patriotism to games and to trailers and stuff, that I feel like by 2008 it started to your characters kind of felt like they were like disaffected, like that some sort of a system had turned their back on them, which you got in Resistance, you got in Infamous, you got in Star Killer even. So I feel like this was like this was almost like the bridge to then getting to like the Harry Dad era of your Last of Us and your Bookers.
You're not wrong. Even the Call of Duties of the time, that's World at War, which would have been preceded by Modern Warfare 2, and then Black Ops. This is that like, oh, military cool and all that, but it's like, what if we're fighting for the wrong side?
So you're saying
simplify.
So you're saying around the time of Infamous, video games were going through their sort of awkward early 20s. wanting to wear the buzz cut so that they could look hard on campus.
Yeah.
And then later on would mellow out into their dad era.
So which I'm very now curious.
I think gaming, I think gaming very much ages almost alongside with its crowd. It's such a young medium.
Yeah, it's still like currently the age of the people who most play video games.
Which then begs the question: could Infamous work now in this Harry Dad era?
Well, they tried Infamous Second Son on the PlayStation 4, and I didn't like that game much at all, I'm afraid.
What was it about it that didn't click with
you? Well, for one thing, they were still pushing the moral choice thing, and it felt like it didn't really change anything in this case, except for like the final cutscene at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the main character was much more annoying. He didn't have a buzz cut. They just made him wear a beanie the whole time, so they wouldn't have to animate hair still.
But he had a beanie. It's fine. Yeah, I thought the choices in particular in Second Son were laughably bad. I mean, the opening choice is like you're on the do you take a beating so that everyone else at the reservation doesn't, or do you sell everyone at your reservation out? And I'm like, what kind of a moral choice is this? Like, why would anyone want to play as that second character?
Yeah, I think what I learned over time that the problem with the good or evil choice is that the evil choice never leads to a very satisfying story. Because as human beings, we like stories to have fitting conclusions.
Yeah.
And playing as an evil person doesn't feel like, we're getting what we deserve.
Yeah, and even if I'm not mistaken, so that 2 could have one of two endings, like a good ending where you sacrifice yourself and stop the virus, or a bad ending where you kind of embrace the beast and
you know what I really liked about that? What I really liked about that Infamous 2 is that there's characters in Infamous 2, like support characters, who will sort of represent the moral choice. You got one goody two-shoes lady who with ice powers, and you got one badass sort of hardcore lady who represents the evil choices, who has a different suite of powers, and you like borrow both of them at various times in the plot. But then, just before the final chapter, when it turns out what's at stake, those characters sort of switch sides. And the character who was previously good is now advocating for evil in a slightly conservative way. And the character who was previously bad is like, no way, this is too much. The stakes are too high. And is suddenly on the side of good. And so it really sort of messes with your decision making at the end.
Yeah, 2, I feel like 2 is we mentioned some of them earlier, but 2 is one of those games where that sequel feels like they really like took a hot beat and made a hot song. You get your Uncharted 2 in that same era, your Dead Space 2, your Assassin's Creed 2, stuff, even Modern Warfare 2, like stuff. It just really felt like a very smart evolution on the same hardware generation, which is just something that we get less and less now because development times have bloated so drastically that it's hard to forget that sometimes. Like they put, I think Infamous 1 to Infamous Second Son came out in the span of 4 years, maybe 5 years.
Remember that.
Yeah, whereas now, Uncharted 1, 2, 3, and The Last of Us all on the same console. Whereas, now it's you're lucky if a studio like that's able to put out one game a generation, which is, I guess a whole other problem.
Just play indies, vote with your wallet.
Just play Immortals of Avium and pretend,
Yeah.
So what are the games now that sort of have a similar vibe to this in terms of like what game of the past few years would you say is like Infamous like, and it's not directly tied to an IP, something coming out new, something that's...
Well, part of the reason I didn't like Second Son is that as I say, it was an early PS4 title, so it was pushing the realistic graphics and was following the trend of arse-achingly realistic look for everything, which lost some of the slightly stylized edge of Infamous 1 and 2, which was part of its appeal. I mean, that's what you want to be in a superhero game. You want things to be stylized and things. You don't want to like be looking at a slightly uncanny valley bait weirdo face staring back at you while you're doing superpower catharsis.
That's my sidekick you're talking about there.
Well, there you go. And I think what games in the current era that create the same effect, you want to look for games that also have a stylized effect. Hi-Fi Rush springs to mind.
Okay, that's bold.
Maybe also Neon White to a lesser extent.
Yeah, we could talk about Sunset Overdrive if you want. I mean, that was a while ago though. That was a while ago.
No, how about we don't?
What a game!
But yeah. And the superhero sandbox is at its heart a traversal focused sandbox. So basically anything that embraces the spirit of traversal, I'd say. Fun traversal, just cause style traversal. Wee.
Yeah, even Prototype I thought had it at the time too. Like I thought both those games kind of worked for me at launch.
Yeah, well, that's why I pit them against each other in a lingerie contest.
Big part.
Excuse me?
Who won? More importantly, who won?
Okay, well, this was back when I was really famous. Well, I did both Infamous and Prototype, 0 punctuations, and at the end of the last one I said, they've both got their own strengths. I think I recommend them both. As for which one's best, I can't really decide, so we'll just decide based on which game's developer produces the best picture of the other game's protagonist wearing women's clothing.
Who won?
And fair play to them. They were good sports. Both developers submitted entries to the contest. So I judged them, and I think the Infamous developers won in the end.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Incredible.
The whole incident was memorialized in, I believe it was the 2008 Guinness Book of Gamers World Records.
What was the record? Most smart of bald men?
Well, the thing about the Guinness Book of Records is that it's not really a record book. It's not really a reference text. It's just, hey, here's some fun shit that happened.
There you go.
It's more of a Ripley's Believe It or Not kind of guy, really. That vibe, that tone, I don't know. Who's kind of, I wouldn't say punk, but who very much like sort of has this unquestioning air of the time that we live in. Who's the hoorah of 2024 is like the vibe that I'm going for.
Yeah, the thing is like a lot of games have tried to go for that vibe, and it feels like people kind of roll their eyes at it now. I don't know if it's because we see it a lot or it's been sort of corporatized, but I don't know. We had like Forspoken coming out. Feel like there was a bit of Infamous in there, but obviously did not stick the landing. And
stayed in New York. You really should have.
Yeah, should just stay in New York. That was the problem. Shouldn't have got Isekai.
Isekai. Why not Isekai to New York?
Yeah, exactly.
Was it literally just the main character being such an obnoxious bint that produced the negative response to Forspoken?
It was like a handful of out of context clips. Honestly, that sunk the game, in my opinion.
And a terrible moral choice at the beginning, where they don't take the money because they're looking for the cat, when you very much could have taken them both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even a choice. They just force you to get the cat when you could very easily pick up the money.
Yeah, no. And I'm not going to fight people on the whole, like, oh, no, you don't get to pull this one back. But, like, the world was pretty bland. I thought the traversal mechanics were always cool from the get-go. And it was just weird to have these, like, having never played a Final Fantasy game before, I feel like that was a Final Fantasy gator in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I think games these days, AAA games, always try to, like, push personality in their characters, because as we see in games like God of War Ragnarok, there's constant dialogue between the main character and their entourage. I don't know why they think that's necessary, but there's always an emphasis on character and personality. And if you look back, Infamous, Cole McGrath is very much an everyman. He's kind of bland, really. I mean, he'd have to be to reflect whatever moral choices you make, I suppose.
Yeah, I think a lot of the protagonists of that time were, right? This post kind of Gordon Freeman, BioShock.
And for all the complaint about everyone being the same buzzcut dude, it's true that being more of an everyman makes it easier for the player to project.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you really characterize a character, like you do in Forspoken, you're sort of rolling the dice. Either people will really like the character, or people will hate their guts. And if you just stick nice and bland in the middle, you sort of avoid that particular gamble.
Yeah, you guys remember when Larian Studios called out its audience for their character creator? They took the data of all the character creation options and they went, congrats, you made the default character. You guys are so bland. And well, if you're like me, you're just like whatever, get on with it.
Well,
but some people just like that's it. That's my hair, my eyes.
Some people don't care, just don't care at all. Like in my game, Starstruck Vagabond, available now on Steam. The default appearance is you have just woken up from cryosleep, so you got crazy bed hair and you're wearing plain white jumpsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing you see is a hairdresser and a clothes shop, so you can pick something else. But I've seen like footage from like players who played who were really into the game, who played like 20 hours, and they've just stuck with the default appearance because some people just don't care.
See, I stuck with it, but I liked it. That was very much my hair in like my early 20s. Could just get out of bed. I'm like, all right, I felt represented.
I feel like if I know, this is kind of a tangent, but if I know a game's going to give me all sorts of armor and shit to wear, I don't spend any, like in a Souls game. I'm like, I don't give a shit what I look like.
Yeah.
I'm going to be just changing my clothes all the time. What is it? I don't care.
Well, yeah, I mean, a game where you're constantly changing armor and outfits, then you don't care so much. But people appreciate
you get those
being
moments, where you take off the helm for a minute to trade out for something else, and the clown fro comes out,
and I forget how ugly I was.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah.
I think some players appreciate being able to have like a fixed look for themselves. I mean, Saints Row players certainly do.
Yeah.
If it's first person, I don't get where I actually can't see myself.
That's weird.
Even third
does
person,
it with the shared space, right?
Yeah. Like even third person, I'll go for like loud hair, loud back, loud hips.
Because you just be looking at you just be looking at your back the whole time, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Instead of like, ooh, my mustache. I spent so much time on never seeing it.
Another thing I jotted down just was that Infamous, along with I guess Red Dead, was interesting in having their sort of genre spin-offs, like their sort of small little DLCs that are more genre focused, with the Festival of Blood, which was pretty much fighting vampires. Similar to Undead Nightmare. And I think we were talking about that even last week when we were talking about weird games of like, Far Cry Blood Dragon, kind of taking the framework of something relatively normal and being able to do something a little bit riskier with that. And I wish that was just more popularized.
Yeah, I mean, corporate design these days, they just don't know how to hang loose anymore.
It's funny you say that. Going through old Infamous Second Son footage, I'm like, oh my God, was this where we start seeing the creeping of the magenta and the cyan as the magic becomes a lot more?
Do you think Sony would?
Neon.
Do you think Sony would be letting the developers participate in a women's clothing art competition this day and age? Something tells me they wouldn't.
No.
It's
it was the magenta of it. Like, again, I do think, in the same way that the first two were kind of about like using the electricity of the city around you, that was using the neon of the city around you. So they had to kind of take Seattle and have some liberties with it by throwing
the essence of magenta is that it's when a corporate entity is trying to bring across the spirit of being free-spirited and punky, and that's absolutely the effect Infamous Second Son gives me.
Yeah, like a Pepsi commercial that's trying to be counterculture, and it's like, no, you are the biggest thing on the planet. You're not counterculture.
Yes.
Oh, poor
you are
Kylie Jenner.
Yes.
I do, yeah. I do think Second Son is still very impressive from a technical aspect. I think, especially for being a game that came out in the first 6 months, I think, of the PS4. Like, I think it's the city having that wet feel to it, and seeing all the lights and everything kind of reflecting off puddles and everything. I went back and played it, replayed some of it a few years ago, and I thought it still looked really good.
Graphics. Who cares?
Looks good, but again, in that Hollywood kind of way of like, oh, I've made it. I have money now, so now I fix my gap tooth, and I comb my hair, and your personality's gone.
I don't know, man. I just think it looks way better than Infamous.
Do you think Madonna would have gone as far as she did without the gap?
Hellblade 2 looks really good. I was playing that last week.
Very good looking.
Yeah,
nice
really good looking wet rocks in that game, if that's your bag.
Oh, yeah.
It's not wet rocks in games.
Still not a good game, but it looks.
Don't spoil your review.
I'll like that's a spoiler.
Wet rocks. What are some other we're talking about the fact that it's kind of crazy that it's been 10 years since Infamous Second Son came out, 15 years since this game. Like, it felt like for 5 years it was like, oh, we're gonna be getting these forever. And then Sucker Punch moved on to Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm assuming their next game is Ghost of Tsushima 2. So, what are there any other kind of franchises like this that you
Thief
kind of roll your eyes up? Does one bad game ruin the bunch? Like
you hit a sore spot. Ask Arcane Leon. Ask them.
Yeah, I guess.
Apparently, that's how it works. When you one bad game, and suddenly that's the end of your franchise. Apparently,
Yeah.
I want a new Thief game that's good, like Thief 2 was.
Like Thief 2 was.
Or
Did they only have one good one?
I'd just like a good focused stealth game, like Thief 2 was. Like not where stealth is just one of the things you can do in the sandbox, and it actually focuses on giving you the experience like you're a burglar creeping through a quiet house at night, and getting surprised by guards.
Did you not like
that one of those
Murder
genres?
Simulator, or what was it? Thief Simulator. You didn't like?
Oh yeah, Thief Simulator.
I needed bigger mansions. Doing it like suburban houses wasn't enough.
Feels wrong, doesn't it? Stealing from your fellow man.
What is that? Gloomwood? Is that the game that's kind of like Thiefy?
It is in a sense. Yeah.
Apparently it's still early access. I'm holding out for it.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's certain franchises that like aren't being revisited, but the indie games have very much kind of picked up the torch.
Well, that's indie games' job.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's 2D Castlevania games. It feels like indie games have picked up the torch with
Boomer shooters.
Boomer shooters. I would have said a few years ago, Jet Set Radio, and then along comes Bomb Rush Cyberpunk.
There's another one, isn't there, coming soon?
The Rakugaki?
Yes, Jet Set Radio-like games.
Yeah, first off, that game is a very bad name. You can't be the name comes off the tongue well. Trying to search for the game is not great.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's to me, I just kind of stay on the whole. The essence, it's an attitude gone. I don't know if we'll get it back. I'm not sure who represents that nowadays. Outside of like a random character in say Apex, or Valorant.
Yeah, that's interesting. You almost get little pieces of it in other games, right?
Yeah, they can all exist at the same time. So why have one big movement?
Yeah.
Hey, it's all just shit mashed together. Let's appeal to as broad an audience as possible. Let's put fucking Jason Voorhees and Agent Smith in our Smash Brothers knockoff.
He's so thick.
He's so big. Why is he so big?
He was always pretty big. I mean
he's like, not like that. He's like a golem.
If you ever watched Friday the 13th Part 7, say, he's fucking gigantic, dude.
Yeah, but he's
like Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
that's
like
why
he's wearing
they needed a Donkey Kong character, didn't they?
It's just if you just palette swap him, he's just DK. Just a naked monkey with Kai.
You need the character with the jump heavy attack. Like that's
so did the Friday the 13th IP owners figure out their shit? Are they going to bring back Friday the 13th the game anytime soon?
Oh yeah.
I don't know about the game, but they were like working on a TV series about Camp Crystal Lake, and then that sputtered out, and now they said they've like announced a new Friday the 13th multimedia initiative.
The fact they pulled support from the game was a criminal. I mean, that was free money. That game kicked ass.
It just seems like that's just like a crazy.
You enjoyed yelling at toddlers? Is that what it was?
I'm pretty nostalgic for the Jason films anyway, so it's one of the few multiplayer games I really liked.
My God, the screeching as you're trying to hunt them down is also very belittling to me.
Yeah,
I mean, is that not like? Isn't that just Dead by Daylight and Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
It's not the same.
Yeah, it's a different experience for sure.
I mean, Dead by Daylight's got all that bullshit with having to stick people on hooks and all of that. Jason, it's just burst into a cabin and stab all the beds, and someone was hiding under them. What an idiot!
Meanwhile, Jason's all thick. Speaking of horror things that need to come back, what's Capcom doing with Dino Crisis? I feel like I feel like we are in an era where
Dino Primal. What the hell was it called? Primal Fury.
I think dinosaurs in a horror context is kind of a hard sell because dinosaurs are, they're fun. Little boys like dinosaurs. They got dinosaur pajamas.
I was about to say that. I was like, it's hard to be scary when you have people like Jesse Galena who loves dinosaurs. Like,
That's true.
you can't.
Oh,
can't blame
Exoprimal.
him.
Was that what you were thinking? Of?
Exoprimal. Thank you.
No,
Yeah.
that's not. I don't want.
What did I say?
I don't want to have to shoot Dino Primal. I don't. I thought the survival horror worked in Dino Crisis 1 and 2, and then the third one for some reason went to space. You had to fight space dinos, which I don't know how that happened, but
well, that's even sillier. That's like 2 different kinds of pajamas there.
Yeah, exactly.
Laundry
It just seems like with Capcom has such success now with Resident Evil and remakes and their tech and everything, and just fucking just right click, change out all the zombies and all the fucking Spaniards with dinosaurs. There you go.
Yeah, what's that? Control F replace.
Control F replace.
Well, you can always get into Skyrim modding. They could probably put some dinosaurs in Skyrim for you if you want.
Probably not. Just Thomas the Tank Engine.
I don't want to play Skyrim.
No. I don't know. I feel like that around that time, something else that we've lost with that attitude is probably like we're not going to get Rock Band games anymore. Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Well, this sort of plastic instrument phase was a phase we all grew out of.
Now the plastic's in me.
Because you only really need one plastic instrument game, and now that's whatever the popular one is now. I think there's like an open source thing that everyone plays now. But for a while, they were bringing out new plastic instrument games every couple of years, and nobody wanted to keep buying more plastic instruments, so that's just sort of died out.
You know what plastic instruments were great? The bongos for Donkey Konga or Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. Yeah. They only worked for like two or three games, but man, was it nice having those bongos.
What a good time.
Bongos also not a great way to control a character in a 2D platformer. Bongos are
oh please, people!
Bad idea to make that game.
They beat Dark Souls games with those things. How bad?
Yeah, those are like broken sickos who do that.
Yeah, the plastic instrument phase was sort of hand in hand with the Wii phase when everyone's living rooms were accruing more and more bits of plastic. All the fucking attachments they brought out to stick on the Wii controller. It could be anything. It could be a gun. It could be a tennis racket.
It's also at a time when my house was bigger. We're paying more for less house. There's no room for motion controls these days.
Yeah. It was also that reminded me. I think Infamous 2 ended up getting PlayStation Move support, and I don't even remember what that was like.
Yeah, what the fuck would that even do?
I don't know if it was like you almost controlled it like Mario, to where you like moved with one of them and then kind of pointed at where you wanted electricity. Controlled like Mario Galaxy or something. I just felt that was probably just like a Sony mandate, like, hey, you have to do this. By the way,
a strange time.
Yeah.
Hang on, my dogs just did a big stretch, so I have to say big stretch.
Oh my god, it was a huge stretch.
Big stretch.
Toughy.
Big stretch.
Big
Good
stretch.
Yeah.
Are we going to super chats? It's about time to.
You know what,
chat? Let us know. Bygone era.
Yeah, tell us about your Infamous memories and tell us about whatever games you want to see come back.
Doran Gross Nipples, as I like to call him, gives $5 and says Yahtzee has Scottish ancestry but is himself from England, making him no true Scotsman.
You are titular no true Scotsman.
Wow.
I don't claim to be a Scotsman. I'm one of those pedants who insists that you are just wherever you were born and raised. I don't have any truck with all those Americans who say they're Irish when they were like born in fucking Wisconsin and lived there their whole lives. Where were you born?
Why did I take a stray?
Wisconsin.
I don't consider myself Irish.
From Poland. They're not Irish.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, whatever. Where were you born? That's what you are. Live with it.
What if you move when you're a kid?
Do you resent it? You've been gone a while.
Yeah.
I still identify as British.
Yeah, that'll do.
What about, my mom was born and raised in Poland and moved to America when she was like 26.
Okay.
And she's like in her, she's almost 70 now. Like, what? She's not supposed to still say thick. I don't know, Polish accent.
Yeah, well, there you go. She's Polish.
I say
no,
whatever.
She's not. She's an American citizen. She's been here.
I say whatever the
70s.
thickest part of the accent is. That is your nationality.
I don't think.
I think if you came to 26 is like past all your developmental years. If you come to America when you're like 13 and live there for the rest of your life, then sure, you can be Polish American.
That doesn't pass in court of laws, unfortunately. Been here since I was 4. Still an alien.
Anyway, gives $2 and says, Yards, Mikey wants to know your thoughts on Black Mesa. It's quite good. I like it. Will that
Except
do?
Zen, right? Zen's too much. They added too much spice to Zen.
I mean, it seems like they probably put a lot of effort into it to reflect all the time they spent on it, and that's fine. It does still kind of feel like a whole extra game they added on to the end.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's a good game. It's just not much like the game that comes before it.
There you
go. Dr. Theo gives $2, says, got my infamous copy from the Sony hack aftermath.
Oh, I forgot about that. PSN was down for like a month and a half. Like Sony got hacked and their entire online infrastructure was down for like over a month.
I remember that. Yeah, we were making fun of them. Yeah, it's free, but it's never up.
Yeah. That was in 2011. It lasted 23 days.
That's like that fucking power outage that they had in New York in the 70s, where there was lasted 3 days and they started throwing like riots.
Started looting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe afterwards you got free games if you had a PSN subscription.
From the riots?
Yeah.
Yes.
Everyone rioted, and so you got a free copy of like Infamous and little bit.
Everyone looted those little cards with 2 months of PlayStation Live subscription on them.
Oh, there it is. What'd you get after your power outage here recently, Morty?
I didn't get shit, and I don't even know if they're gonna. I don't think they're even gonna like. Well, I guess they wouldn't give me money for the days I didn't have power because you only pay for the amount of power.
Well, they should at least pay you back for any like meat that thawed out.
For all the coffee I had to buy from the coffee shop. Yeah. It was
Every time
72 hours. It was out for almost 72 hours.
Crazy.
Yeah, every time we get power outages around these parts, thank you, Toffee, for plugging my game. Then what usually follows is PG&E releasing an advert saying, "Hey, sorry about that power outage, but at least we didn't set fire to all the forests this time."
You're like, I guess that's good.
Oh, nice.
I think that's good. Yeah.
Oh.
Loki's Wager gives $2 and says, "Who's up starstrucking their vagabond?"
Jesus, why did that sound so gross?
I did see a comment calling it Starscream Vagisil.
Yes. I guess I've earned this to a certain extent for all the titles I've corrupted. Yes, my game Starstruck Vagabond out on Steam right now. I spent the whole weekend fixing it. Most of the bugs are out. If you've been holding out, it's probably safe to get now. Oh, actually, wait till tonight, because I figured out how to fix that one bug which made every upgrade unit on Derelict spawn at -10. Just a line of code just disappeared from the game somehow. I don't know why. I didn't delete it.
Just hit your limit. I don't know.
Anyway, Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, "What would your conduit powers be?" Mine's gravity, in reference to the infamous games where everyone's got superpowers based on a quote-unquote element, but they were pretty fast and loose with that in infamous Second Son.
I'd take broth. Been on a broth binge lately. Yeah, broth.
Like bone broth?
Bone broth, veggie broth, any kind of broth. I'm just brothing all over the place.
I mean, one of the elemental powers in Second Son was concrete. And I was like, okay, how does that work? Concrete is like a mix of different substances mixed with water. I mean, can you generate all of those different substances in this specific combination and only that?
That's
interesting. And don't get me started on video as a power.
Oh, that's interesting with the semantics, though. But if you see concrete as cake and your conduit is cake, right? Well, can you control eggs, flour, and milk? No, just cake. You know,
just once they combine.
Yeah. At what point is it now concrete? At what point is cake cake?
Always the weird thing about Captain Planet was like the 5 kids, their powers were earth, fire, wind, water. And I'm like, yeah, those all make sense. Classic video game powers. And the last one was heart. And I'm like, what?
No, that's a classic video game power. That's just charm in Hades, isn't it?
Yeah, that's blood.
Yeah, but like enemies. You can't like. You're like, I'm going to shoot fire at these guys. I'm going to put them up in a little sandstorm or in a little tornado.
You fix their brains to make them nicer people. That's what heart does.
Yeah,
that's what the Phantom Thieves do.
They say heart, but it's really brain powers. Is what you got there.
There you go. Yeah, they never really explored the full potential of heart. I fear they could have like taken over the fucking world. Could have certainly run for president.
That's true.
Yeah, you'd get in pretty easily if you could just heart every crowd you ran into.
Was that a Howard Dean noise? Did Howard Dean have the power? He had too much heart.
Too much heart.
My conduit power would be spunk. Squirtle Squad gives $2. Squirtle Squad 420 gives $2 and says F Zoobs in reference to something that happens in Starstruck Vagabond. Glad to see you all getting engaged on some emotional level.
Is Zoob's a person?
No, it's an alien creature that's a recurring hazard.
Little dudes you squish, yeah.
Yeah, the squishy dudes.
I like those. Probably one of my favorite missions.
It's polarizing, but then the entire game is apparently.
I like those moments because it feels like I'm a Pep Boys. Like I'd almost imagine like a spin-off where it's like I'm just out here repairing ships, really.
Yeah, if you can do that.
I like it.
All the games gives $4.99 and says, I still adore the fact that Yahtzee got 2 AAA developers to participate in a lingerie artwork contest because of his ZP review. Well done, Yahtzee.
That's the power of art for you. See?
Yeah, as I say, they probably wouldn't do it today. They'd be like, oh, this might damage our brand. I have to run it by marketing. Anyway, The Bad Thing, member for 4 months in The Green Gang, says, morning, lads. WB idea, the bad games we love are Windbreakers. I thought you were talking about Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers, that's what I thought.
Same, but also, we already did that one. The bad games we love. Yeah.
Well, I guess we could always do it again.
So it's a good idea. Because
we've covered every topic.
Episode.
You know what? Yeah, I feel like at a point when I was rewatching the X-Files, you'd get to a point where, like in season 7, they just kind of redo something they did in season 2, and it's just like we'll just have another shape-shifting guy, and Mulder will get into some hijinks with him. And I feel like at a certain point, we just dig back. We'll start looking at something else topics we like. And like, fuck it, we'll bring it back.
Yeah, like some British. There's some like British radio. There's a British radio panel show that's been running since the 70s. And there's like a million different seasons, and I was like listening back to them all for something to listen to. And they were reusing a lot of material because they were counting on nobody like archiving everything that ever came out on the radio, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, we just hope you didn't remember them all. Yeah, a lot of that older episodic stuff really does do that. I'm watching House, and it tends to be a lot of that. Like, oh, you shouldn't do the thing. I'm going to do the thing. You shouldn't do it. You're black. And then, like, it's just casual racism followed by, like, oh, he's going to change his ways. No, he's not going to. Yeah.
Well, it's, formulaic stuff can be comfort food. Look at Columbo.
It is comforting. I'll tell you what.
Man, Ren Momo gives $5 and says, Sebastian Frosty the Snowman Ruiz for Tumblr Sexy Man whenever that happens.
I'd be honored to be right next to like Sherlock Holmes and Sans from Undertale. That's an honor.
As a Tumblr heartthrob.
Yeah. Tumblr Sexy Man.
Fair enough. Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, best years 2012 because Far Cry 3 and Borderlands 2.
Man, I think 2012 might be one of the worst years.
I disagree. I would say 2007 is the best year because we got BioShock and the Orange Box and various other things.
That's because you're old.
And it was before video games.
I was going to say 98's the best year. That's even older.
Yeah. Everybody, but people my age, well, we hold 2011 to 2013. It just depends on your upbringing, really. When were you in high school? And Marty was in, I don't know, why years was old.
I was in high school in the mid to late 90s, since you ask. Which granted was when Half-Life came out.
Boom. It stands aside from Marty.
Fox D gives $5 and says Fallout 3 had the worst binary moral choice system because the writing on the evil choices was downright atrocious, like a child's idea of evil. Well, as I say, people started demanding much more nuance in their binary choices from that point onwards. I think Mass Effect was the start of that.
Yeah.
Like, it was still basically good versus evil, but it was more nuanced, Paragon, Renegade, goody goody two shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, goody goody two shoes versus gets the job done, but in the way that the police chief would get very angry at.
Oh, I love it. Guy that always gets his man, but no, sergeant don't like him. Oh, that's good.
You're a loose cannon, Commander Shepard. Hand over space badge. Jackson Jewell, a member for 6 months in the Green Gang, says, Yahtzee, I finished your new book. Well done. Now you can start on Starstruck Vagabond, which probably has enough writing to be a book.
Oh my gosh.
Or Jam. It's good.
Fungus Finder gives $2. It has Rare Misfits mention, killer theme song. Yeah, people don't talk about Misfits much these days. It was the British Heroes. And it had the guy who played Ramsay Bolton in Game of Thrones, playing a slightly creepy dude.
Very good at that. Well,
yeah, he found his Irv.
I hope he doesn't like Kevin Spacey it, where I go, "Oh, you weren't acting. You weren't acting at all."
That was just you.
Oh.
I think Misfits. I don't know if it was like how easy was it to watch when it was first airing. Like I'm assuming now it's just somewhere streaming, but like I think back then it was a little bit harder to find British shows. Like I remember even the British Office was you had to kind of go out of your way to find it.
Well, I was listening to a podcast the other day about like the internal workings of the BBC. And I was like, apparently every other week someone comes up and says, why don't you just like charge us a subscription fee to international audiences rather than relying on the license fee?
Yeah.
Saying only people who pay the license fee in Britain can watch it. And there's just always some dumb bureaucratic reason.
Strange.
Magnum Weight gives $5. Says of the big 3 second party. 3 second party? That doesn't sound like a very interesting celebration. Of the big 3 second party Sony devs, Sucker Punch always seemed to have the smallest output, but a very high quality per game.
3 second party. Poison
coitus. They're I mean, they're first party now. They got bought. I think in between Infamous's 2 and 3. I'm assuming by big 3 second party you mean them, Naughty Dog, and Insomniac, maybe.
Yeah, just the 3 developers that produced mascot games.
Sure.
For the PS2, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, and Crash Bandicoot. Jack and Dexter.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Sucker Punch had a pretty consistent output until games just became fucking 6-year projects, right? Like, like we said, like the Sly trilogy all on PS2 and the Infamous games on PS3, and then once you got into 10 years ago, it's just Ghost of Tsushima took 5 years, and the next one will probably take 5 years, and
Sucker Punch definitely seemed to be very efficient jobbers, which you need. They get the job done, and all their games basically work.
Insomniac probably has the quickest output or the like most consistent output. Feels like they put out games on the regular.
Well, they've probably got the smallest output of the 3. I mean, Naughty Dog's got Uncharted, Last of Us, Crash Bandicoot, the other thing. Insomniac's got Resistance and Ratchet and Clank and all the other things.
Spider-Man.
Didn't they do Sunset Overdrive as well? No.
Sunset Overdrive. Just in the past 10 years, they did Sunset Overdrive, a couple Ratchet and Clank games, all the Spider-Man games. They had kind of their like indie and VR initiative with that Song of the Deep and then some VR nonsense.
So of the 3, Sucker Punch seemed to be like to have the fewest strings to their bow.
I would say so. Well, and at the very least, Naughty Dog's obsessed with going back and remastering their old games, which a little bit of that could be given to Insomniac.
Yeah,
let us play these games.
Yeah, maybe Sucker Punch could take a leaf out of that book.
Yeah.
So we could just fucking play it on Steam. You can play Prototype on Steam. I guess we know who won the contest in the end.
You can now put them against each other because Prototypes now is technically a first-party Microsoft game.
Oh, there you go.
Activision game, right?
Third party, first party. You just let me know when they're public domain.
It was the Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction devs who did Prototype.
Radical?
That's the ones. Not Free Radical, that's a different guys. Those are the Time Splitters guys.
Expensive Radical.
Phew. There's too many radical things.
They also did The Simpsons Hit and Run and Simpsons Road Rage, which are both very good.
Oh, Jesus.
So good. We don't talk about the fighting game, but...
No, we don't need to talk about that one.
Verbuckter Herr der Dunkelheit gives €5 and says, here's the 20% from Starstruck Vagabond I didn't pay. Happy belated birthday, Yahtzee. P.S. Wow, you almost got my name right first. You is said like you in Buggy. Okay.
What do you
think? Wow, they got you.
The Bugged Lord of Darkness.
I love it. I love comments like that. By the time you get to the end of the sentence, it's too late. It's not good.
I know how to pronounce German. I studied German. Verbuckter Herr der Dunkelheit.
That was beautiful.
if whenever there's an E and an I together in German, you pronounce the second letter. So if it's EI, it's pronounced I, and if it's IE, it's pronounced E. There's a little fun fact for you German pronouncing dudes.
Yes, Germans.
Yes. A good thing I set you straight on that one. Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, tedious as the paper trail in Second Son was, I had fun going to and fro from game to custom puzzle websites Sucker Punch made. Sucks the payoff's a jacket. Now this was referring to the sort of semi-ARG side quest thing in Second Son.
I do not remember that.
I thought you were genuinely talking about Paper Trail, like the new.
There's a game that just came out called Paper Trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was like a hidden character whose conduit power was paper, and there was this whole like ARG relating to it. Apparently, I didn't go through it myself, but you don't see as much of that these days.
Were they like the Riddler of the whole thing?
I don't know. As I say, I didn't go through it myself.
Have like ARGs like this, and then there was that I Love Bees around Halo 2. Has that sort of morphed into the games that something like Animal Well, like the puzzles that like a group of people need to solve? You know, games like Void Stranger or any one of those games that kind of get that fan community.
I just played Void Strangers. Jesus, man, that's an experience.
Yeah.
Oh, like I was gonna insist that we do an ARG episode, but I feel like it would just be an hour and a half of us going, "What the fuck are these things?" So I think this time next year we should at least go through one to have something to talk about.
There you go. Okay, we're gonna pencil it in.
All right. Airo Peltonen gives €10 and says, "Hi, fairly new fan. Found you after your exodus while looking for game dev content, pursuing a master's in game dev, so listen to all your stuff now. Love dev heads, congrats on the launch, Yards."
Hey,
thank you so much. I'm glad we're getting new fans, and it's not just people who stubbornly stuck around for 16 years.
Yeah, you crusty old wanks, same ones over and over. Endearingly.
Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, apart from Infamous, Sunset Overdrive superhero sandbox is pretty fun and challenging. It's just the characters and too cool for school tone is annoying. I agree, Alex Armstrong.
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I disagree.
Wait, when was Tony Hawk's American Wasteland? 2005. I can't. That's a little too early.
Sunset Overdrive was pretty magenta in spirit.
It was. That's going to hit its 10th anniversary later this summer.
Oh, wow. Guess we'll have to do a podcast on that as well.
I guess if you insist.
If we must. Yeah, and that is very like a Disney rebel. You know, the kind of rebel that you could show in a PG movie.
So what became what is that kind of morphed it? Like Overwatch almost?
Rebellious, but not in a way that would offend the Chinese market.
Yes.
Sunset Overdrive's great. You guys are fucking nuts. For us, I didn't. That was more directed towards.
That's you, yeah. It's because you don't like games. See, I see this, but I'm like, you know, I had my American Wasteland. I'm like Steve Irwin's wife. I forget her name, Terry. Yeah, she's like, I had my love. What a sweetie.
Oh, so you had American Wasteland, so you're never gonna get remarried?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna get remarried.
Yeah, I guess I don't think you're ever gonna top Steve Irwin in terms of a husband. So why bother?
What about Steve Austin?
I mean, everyone's going to feel lesser in comparison.
I never thought of that. Yeah, he was wrangling gators, wasn't he?
I'm really talking about the sort of expression of his personality.
Yeah, he was pure charm, joy, and mullet. You're not going to get that back.
You're never going to fill that hole.
That's why, like,
how you feel with Tony Hawk American Wasteland?
Yeah, that's how I feel with Sunset Overdrive and American Wasteland. Like, I had my love.
L Cringe gives 15, I think those are shekels, and says, never understood the good stroke bad moral system. Gameplay wise, there's no reason to do anything but all bad or all good to get the best abilities. I said that, L Cringe.
What game's done morality the best?
Also, I mentioned something about the bad path never being narratively satisfying. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to shout out The Suffering. Because what I like about The Suffering is that it doesn't really affect gameplay, and there's a neutral ending as well.
Oh, that's
or if you go in betweenies.
Very good. Well, when you say explores it the best, do you mean mechanically or the story held up?
I guess either way. Are there any that just...
You got like Disco Elysium, you got Papers, Please.
Yeah.
You got Darkest Dungeon.
Undertale. Undertale is a great game for the moral aspect.
Yeah, they're not as rare. But...
if you don't go full genocide or full pacifist, is Undertale still satisfying? If you kind of just go with the flow?
I'd say so.
It's still pretty charming, yeah. I hear it's the War Thunder one's kind of interesting. Rogue Trader, I hear like trying to be good actually comes with punishment in this corpo fascio world that you're in, which really kind of sends that message of, is it good if you're only doing it for reward? Will you still be good even when it's not like to your detriment? So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Command Line Vulpine gives $10 and says, finally catching a live stream. I work night shift, so I'm usually sleeping. Had to wake up early to cover a co-worker's shift. Looking forward to getting home and playing Starstruck Vagabond.
Hey.
Well, geez, we didn't need your life story, Command Line Vulpine.
I wanted to know more. What do you have for lunch?
I love lore. I love lore.
What are you lubricating that sandwich with?
Beg pardon?
Excuse me?
You did.
Moving on.
Your sandwiches do need moisture.
They do need moisture. If you're a dry guy, get out of here.
Yeah, my wife made my sandwich without butter-like spread, and it wasn't the same.
Jeez, that's an attempt on your life, yeah.
Well, she did remember to put Branson pickle in it, which is a lubricant of a kind.
There you go. Yeah,
that's the important thing.
Use that pickle fluid. Yep.
Well, Branson pickle isn't the same as pickle.
What?
I know.
Why would you call it that? God.
Well, pickle is a British word for a kind of chutney.
We're in America, you see.
I know.
Do you guys not have the word chutney? Use that word instead.
Well, we also have chutney. It's just pickle is a kind of chutney.
What is this thing?
I assume Branson pickle is just. Is this just like what's that? What's the Australian thing? Vegemite? Is this just like Vegemite?
It's like peanut butter.
It's very different to Vegemite. Vegemite's a yeast extract. It's sort of like the most intense umami hit you'll ever get.
You're a mommy.
Oh,
Hey.
What is this stuff? Interesting. That's something I'll look into.
It's hard to describe exactly what Branson pickle is because it's a sort of utterly unique combination of flavors and ingredients.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. It's like nothing I've seen before.
That's why I have to import it. There's nothing like it anywhere else.
Okay, later this summer, we'll expense 2 jars to my house and Frost's house, and we'll give everyone a full Branson pickle deep dive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Vegemite's very polarizing, but I think a lot of people who try Branson pickle come around to it.
I'm excited.
Eat it with a strong cheese.
Love strong cheeses.
Oh, it's one of those things, eh? All right.
Yes. Anyway, Leonard Bloom gives €20. Says, a week late, but one of the most fascinating villains in games is the Deserter from Disco Elysium. He is unambiguously evil, and yet I can't help but pity him. Everything he says is true, but it is all an excuse for petty spite.
Deserter. Hold on. I'm playing it right now, but I'm so bad with names. Which one was he? Like, what part of the map was he in?
Wasn't he like the end villain dude?
Ain't that the fat boss?
No.
Yeah, if you're still playing it, you might not have gotten to him yet.
I know I've beaten it, but it was so long ago. Where was
he's kind of like isn't he like kind of like a haggard old man?
I don't know. It all blends in after a while.
Yeah, I also haven't played it in several years, so.
Anyway. Flash. Sorry. David Rabaskevich gives $5 and says, to be fair, the redesign of Cole in Infamous 2 looked like a generic brown-haired 20-something douchebag. Cole looked better bald.
I just don't hold that character design in very high regard of the era, just because so many of them all blend together. Like,
Buzzcuts. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, say what you will about The Last of Us, but Joel just stands out to me as a character, even though I guess his design even became kind of.
It wasn't so much his bald head as Cole's sort of grumpy Grant Mitchell face in the first Infamous that sort of turned me off the dude. Yeah, sort of screwed up dog like a little pug dog.
It's just, again, that time of this like rowdy teenager. We're gonna set you straight, get some discipline in you, put you in the military, but he's still kind of crazy, kind of hurt locker, you know.
Grandma, edgy, gravelly voice.
There you go.
Tsunami Dusha gives $20 and says nothing. Thank you very much. Although he got 2 likes for his trouble, so that probably counts for something. Good luck 13, member for 6 months in the Green Gang, says people talk about Infamous, but Prototype is better. Tomato.
That's for people who like to hide their tentacle fetish.
I think Infamous was more fun on sort of what you might call the ground level, but Prototype was more fun just to sort of traversal around the city. Would be my view. It was very much reminiscent of the last game, Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction.
Yeah.
Which was sort of in the vein of the Spider-Man 2 movie tie-in terms of city traversal as a superhero.
Yeah, and I would say I think Infamous 2 of that whole batch, Infamous 2 is probably my favorite of them. But I might have enjoyed Prototype 1 more than the first Infamous at the time, if only because, like you said, it felt like Prototype 1 felt like building upon the blocks of Hulk, whereas Infamous was like them doing open world for the first time, so it was like a pretty drastic departure from something like Sly 3.
Sure. Moving on, like I didn't just zone out while you were talking. Fox Day gives $2 and says, "Can't wait to play Starfield Vagrant Story, Yards." Oh, that's a new one.
Vagrant Story
not
is really
the
good.
actual title. It's two other game titles smashed together.
It is.
Alex Armstrong gives $10 and says, "About your semi-emblematic on Nuance, what are your thoughts on Zinyak from Saints Row 4? Specifically the choice he gives to rescue Matt or kill yourself, then shows your past and explains how you were Earth's greatest threat." Yeah, I thought he was pretty cool. I thought he was a fun character. That's the point of that video, was that I like villains who are fun. And he was fun. He was operatic and like scenery chewingly evil. I like the little detail you can find that it turns out he's a big fan of Jane Austen.
What? That's what I like in my villains. Huh?
Frost, did you ever get into Saints Row? I most certainly have not.
I own them. So
I don't get
I own them through the Epic Games thing, but it's one of those things where if you weren't at least slightly interested in the genre, you probably won't get the thing that's satirized, doing a satirical take on it. So no. One day, not now.
It's on your list of go through the full franchise.
Yeah, because I think I would do a disservice to go through it backwards. I feel like I have to play Saints Row more before getting into, Grand Theft Auto before getting into Saints Row.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely play Saints Row 2 and 3 and then play Saints Row 4 so you can really appreciate how Saints Row 4 just throws everything into a big bin and stirs it around.
Yeah. So.
King Dead 42 gives $2 and says, "Excited for the -10 rumor fix." Yeah, look forward to it. The Dogmatic Director gives $5 and says, "I named my Starstruck Vagabond character Jacques Bacchione as a joke, only to find several references in Starstruck Vagabond amusingly appropriate. Great work as always, Yards." Yeah, in the alpha version, like the default main character name was Jacques Bacchione as a joke. But I changed that for the final release so that people didn't think it was literally the same character.
But you have a lot of Easter eggs referencing him. You might as well be.
Yeah, there's a reference to quantum tunneling at one point. Aniris Venture is a company in both the game and the books.
Yeah.
You know, it's just my little thing where I like to shout myself out here and there. Doran Grossman Naples gives $5 says, "Appreciate you shouting out Emesis Blue in a fully ramblomatic a while back. I just watched it last night and it was incredible." Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's Emesis Blue.
It's a machinima about the Team Fortress 2 characters, and it's like a 2-hour film, and it's like this incredibly well done, gritty horror noir, but with the cast of Team Fortress 2 in it, and it's really engaging stuff. I thought.
See, when Yacht says he doesn't watch movies anymore, this is what's competing.
He watches 2 hours of machinima.
Yeah, he watches these.
Got no time for Dune.
I just put it on out of curiosity. It just drew me in. Check it out. Humane Shield gives $49.99. Ooh, that's a big one. And says, "Yahtzee, enjoying Starstruck, but for the love of God, could you have labelled the Space Dock console? Because I flew around it for hours looking for a Space Dock. A sign saying Space Dock, you dumb twat, would be great. Otherwise, I enjoying the game." Well, I guess that was important to you if you spent $50 on it. I'll be honest, I don't really know what you're talking about, Humane Shield.
Because you can only sell, you can only dock at very specific places that need your ship stuff. That's probably what they want, just like a bigger sign.
Oh, okay. I mean, I think
the sign flash with a big arrow.
I think the game's pretty well tutorialized, but
you made it. You would.
You did.
You know how to play it.
You made it.
Well, the tutorial went through a lot of focus testing. And people have said to me that they like how thorough the tutorial was and how effective it was at teaching us the basics. So, I don't know.
You need to find a homeless man who doesn't play games to see.
Well, I practically did that when I was showcasing it at the mix and letting randos play it. And that's how I learned I needed to fix the tutorial even further to make it even more obvious.
There you go.
Meister Kleister Heist Air gives €5 and says German tongue twister. Ooh, here we go. Brautkleid bleibt Brautkleid und Blaukraut bleibt Blaukraut.
What does that mean, though?
I don't know.
I know kraut.
Well,
lucky for you. Good on you.
So I know kraut vis-a-vis. I can deduce the rest of this. What was that? Holy Moses.
Sorry, I'm still coughing up phlegm from my cold a week or two back. Herb4NM gives 25 Polish zlotys and says, I'm a bit behind, but if you cannot pronounce a Polish sentence I'm not even going to attempt, you're better off staying as an American, Marty.
No, I'm not saying I'm not American. I was born in America. I just am an American. My mom could probably pronounce this. I'm sure she could pronounce this.
Do you ever describe yourself as Polish American?
No, I describe myself just as American.
Well, listen on Google Translate and give it a go.
Okay, have a go.
Beautiful.
That's pretty close. It's Beatles sounds. What?
Beatles sounds.
Okay.
Like Beetlejuice?
That certainly sounded like someone from Eastern Europe.
I think it's onomatopoeia. Yeah.
Onomatopoeia, the noises Beatles make?
I think so.
Beautiful.
Well, there you go. Well, we got to the end of the super chats. Earlier than normal, I'd say. I guess we didn't gab off as much as we thought we would on Infamous. But,
the problem is Infamous hasn't been ported to other consoles. That's the problem. More people can experience it.
I mean, hey, Sony, if you just skipped to the end or something, fucking port Infamous and Infamous 2 to Steam, now.
It's Memorial Day, you know?
I mean, you can filter the graphics so they look nicer if you like, if you really must. I mean, that's what Thousand Year Door did.
Oh my God, that's such a good game.
Just let me play the fucking games.
I wonder what haircut they'd give him now.
Well, they'd give him shaggy hair and a beard, and he would be escorting his daughter.
There you go. Yeah, dad cut. Lovely. We did it. Everyone can have an extra lunch, longer lunch.
Yeah, extra long walkies for toffee.
Extra long walkies for talkies.
So yes, thanks for listening to Windbreakers podcast. I almost said slightly something else then, but that's not what this is at all. It's the Windbreakers podcast. I was Yahtzee Croshaw. I was joined by Sebastian Ruiz.
It's Amia.
And Marty Sleever.
It is also Amia.
Don't forget to watch this week's Fully Ramblematic. It's going to be about V Rising, if you're interested. And also I'll be doing Yahtzee Tries on Wednesday afternoon as normal. And of course on Thursday, we're going to have our big 6-month fundraiser stream saying, hey, if you haven't subscribed to the Patreon yet, here's reasons why you should. We're all going to get together and have fun playing all kinds of shit.
Including Dokapon. The Dokapon Strokapon continues.
Oh, Christ. Dokapon continues to be kind of lost on me, I'm afraid.
Oh, you don't learn it as you play either.
You
just stay there.
Yeah, it's meant to be experienced in small chunks once a month. So that you forget everything in between.
Well, that's lucky. I'll probably have some time for some Fall Guys and some other stuff.
Yeah, all sorts of fun shenanigans.
Yes. Also, I put out a game last week. If anyone noticed, it's on Steam, released on Friday. It's called Starstruck Vagabond. It's a life sim, work sim, post-dad game with an epic sci-fi plot. Check it out if you like any of those things. I fixed most of the bugs.
You will find more bugs.
That's it for my stuff. You two plug your stuff.
All right.
You put up a whole cold take this morning.
Whole cold take. Get it while it's cold. the future of gaming according to PlayStation, because they be making some wacky moves. And what's the fun of like watching the trends if you can't speculate and maybe make money off of the stock market? But this is not real legal advice. Do not take it as such. But as before, show it to your grandma. What we got going on for the rest of the week, Marty?
Later today, we will be back at 6 p.m. Central. Hidden Gems. Jesse's not here today, but I'll be filling in for him with Jess and Casey, playing like a story-driven boxing game that came out last year called Undisputed. That looks like almost like the Fight Night, the old Fight Night games that used to exist.
Yeah.
So Casey likes his boxing game, so we're playing that. And then tomorrow we have a sponsored stream for a game called Reus 2. Which will be at 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Is Better with Friends back tomorrow or TBD?
Could be, yeah.
Okay. Normal time of night. And then, yeah, like Yahtzee said, normal streams. And then definitely tune in starting 10 a.m. CT on Thursday for our big anniversary stream filled with tons of announcements for cool shit we have coming up in the pipeline. If you're fans of Adventurers Nye, if you're fans of Darren Mooney, if you're fans of the stuff we do, we have all sorts of cool stuff to announce. So tune into that.
Gosh, why would anyone go to any other YouTube channel? That's the question that haunts me.
Some have recipes. I like going to the ones with recipes.
I do like the cooking ones,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I like a bit of binging with Babish now and again.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's it from us.
Great.
See you next time. See you on Wednesday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for being great.